When most of us picture ancient Greece, we imagine shining marble temples, philosophers debating beneath olive trees, and heroic myths carved into the bedrock of Western civilization. We think of democracy, logic, and order, but hidden beneath that polished facade ran something far less orderly. A secret world that pulsed with shadows, intoxication, and desire. A world where sex was not sin but a sacred pathway, an offering to the gods, a ritual of transformation. Behind closed doors and in torchlit groves, Greeks whispered oaths of silence before surrendering to ceremonies that blurred the line between religion and indulgence. These were not festivals for the public eye, but mysteries guarded so fiercely that betrayal meant death. Why did citizens who championed reason crave rituals of chaos? Why did a culture so proud of its clarity insist on veiling certain practices in secrecy? And what can these forgotten rites tell us about the deepest needs of the human soul? Tonight, we descend into the hidden chambers of history and uncover the secret sexual cults of ancient Greece. Greek religion was never tidy. Unlike later traditions that tried to separate purity from passion, the Greeks lived in a cosmos where desire and divinity intertwined. Their gods were not distant or detached. They were hungry, lustful, and often dangerous. Zeus, king of Olympus, transformed into swans, bulls, and showers of golden light to seduce mortals. Aphrodite, goddess of love and beauty, was born from the sea foam of a castrated god's severed flesh. Dionysus, forever torn between joy and madness, invited followers into states of ecstasy that bordered on possession. For the Greeks, sexuality was not simply biology. It was cosmic. Male and female, active and passive, fertility and barrenness, these were reflections of the universe itself. To join sexually was not only to create life, but to echo the very rhythm of creation. This worldview seeped into their rituals. Public religion celebrated fertility festivals, marriages, and theatrical dramas filled with innuendo. But the real power lay in mysteries, rites so secret that even under torture, initiates refused to speak. The Eleusinian Mysteries, celebrated for nearly 2,000 years, promised initiates a vision of the afterlife. Those who took part swore oaths of silence so sacred that breaking them meant death. We still do not know exactly what happened inside the Telesterion Hall, but ancient whispers hint at fertility symbols, sacred drinks, and moments of revelation so profound they changed a person forever. Then there were the cults of Aphrodite, especially in Corinth. Here, sexuality was not shameful, it was ritualized. Sacred attendants served in her temple, and union with them was seen not as vice, but as devotion. And towering above them all was Dionysus, god of wine, theater, madness, and ecstasy. His cults broke boundaries, dissolving identities in waves of intoxication and desire. Picture Corinth at night. The Acrocorinth fortress rises against the sky, crowned by the sanctuary of Aphrodite. Within its walls are not solemn priests in austere robes, but attendants adorned in silks, perfumes, and jewels. Ancient writers claimed the temple housed hundreds of women dedicated to the goddess. For sailors, soldiers, and merchants, a visit was not a shameful indulgence, but a sacred duty. To lie with an attendant was to lie with Aphrodite herself. The body of the priestess became a channel, a vessel through which the goddess touched the mortal world. Pleasure was not sin, it was prayer. Further inland, in the dark of the woods, the followers of Dionysus gathered. They wore masks of satyrs and maenads, carrying torches and ivy-wrapped staffs. The music of flutes and drums grew faster, louder, more frenzied. Wine flowed until reason dissolved, and then the frenzy began. Clothes fell away, boundaries vanished. Men and women embraced strangers as though possessed, their cries echoing through the night. To outsiders, it looked like chaos, even madness. But to initiates, it was revelation. To stand outside oneself, to enter ecstasy, was to touch Dionysus directly. Roman accounts, centuries later, describe the terrifying spectacle of maenads rushing into the hills, hair unbound, shrieking in frenzy. Some tales claim they tore apart animals with their bare hands, consumed by divine mania. Whether literal or symbolic, the message is the same. Sex, violence, and ecstasy merged into one current of sacred release. Meanwhile, The Orphic cults offered a quieter, more symbolic form of erotic mystery. Inspired by Orpheus, the poet who journeyed to the underworld, they preached purification of the soul. Yet even here, sex was not absent. Orphic hymns and rituals used erotic union as allegory for cosmic balance, the mingling of opposites, the eternal cycle of death and rebirth. And then there were the darker sects, spoken of only in fragments. Small circles of initiates who claimed enlightenment came not from scrolls, but from intimacy. Here, sexual initiation was whispered to transmit hidden truths, a physical scripture written on the body rather than on parchment. Archaeology has given us hints, figurines with exaggerated sexual features, scratched graffiti of ritual symbols. But the full story remains hidden. Buried under centuries of silence, secrecy was not a choice, it was survival. In Athens, during the Peloponnesian War, several young men mocked the Eleusinian mysteries at a drunken party. When news spread, panic seized the city. Trials were held, executions carried out, and even powerful generals like Alcibiades were accused of sacrilege. To reveal the mysteries was not scandal, it was treason against the gods themselves. Why did these sexual cults exist in a society already open about desire? The Greeks painted sexuality on their pottery, carved it into statues, and debated it in philosophy. Why the need for secrecy? Because secrecy changes the experience. What is hidden becomes powerful. What is forbidden becomes transcendent. The very act of swearing silence, of entering a locked chamber or midnight grove, heightened the sense that one was stepping outside the ordinary and into the divine. These rites also inverted the social order. In daily life, Greek women had little political power, but in the Dionysian frenzy, women led the charge, embodying the god himself. Slaves and foreigners, normally marginalized, could stand shoulder to shoulder with citizens, their identities dissolved in the ecstasy of the cult. And yet, liberation came with risk. Ecstasy is unpredictable. To surrender one's body and mind was to risk being consumed, to risk never fully returning. What some called divine revelation, others called madness. The cults reveal a deep tension at the heart of Greek culture. By day, Athens boasted philosophers who preached moderation, reason, and virtue. By night, in torchlit ceremonies, those same citizens surrendered to chaos, lust, and frenzy. The human need for balance demanded both. The influence of these rites spread beyond Greece. When Rome absorbed Greek culture, the cult of Dionysus transformed into the Bacchanalia. At first tolerated, it soon alarmed the Senate. In 186 BCE, Roman authorities cracked down, banning the Bacchanalia as a threat to order. They saw in its secrecy not just worship, but conspiracy, rebellion cloaked in ritual. Centuries later, Christianity would condemn these practices outright, branding them as pagan excess. The gods who once demanded ecstasy were recast as demons. Temples to Aphrodite crumbled. Groves of Dionysus fell silent, and the sexual cults that once promised transcendence were erased from memory or deliberately abandoned. Today, tourists wander through Greek ruins in bright daylight. They see marble columns, broken statues, and the orderly remains of theaters and marketplaces. They hear of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. But at night, when the wind moves through the stones, another Greece seems to stir. A Greece of whispered vows and secret oaths, of torches flickering in the dark, of bodies pressed together not in shame, but in prayer. A Greece where sex was not hidden, but sanctified, where desire itself was a doorway to eternity. Some histories are remembered, but others are abandoned.